I don't know about you, but I don't always have time to check out every new update that Elementor launches. But of course it's important to know what the new features are because we might be missing out. A few months ago I did my first big update video where we went through the last 4 updates together. I want to do that again today. We're gonna start with 3.12 because that's where we left off in the last video, and we're gonna work our way up to 3.15 and even see the beta of 3.16. And before we get started, I just want to say 2 things. 1, thank you for everyone that has stepped into my Elementor Pro course. This course went into pre-launch a few weeks ago, and even though it's not done yet, a lot of people already stepped in, so I want to thank you for your trust if you did that. And if the course is fully done, then I will give you guys a big update. For now, you can just check it out if you want to, link in description. And the second thing I want to say is that I'm actually really happy with Elementor's progress so far compared to 2 years ago when they were just launching a few fancy widgets here and there. Right now, these updates are really good. So let's dive in and check out the most interesting stuff. In 3.12, they did launch the mega menu, finally. This is the feature where you hover over menu items and then a whole full menu pops out. You can drag anything into there, which for some websites is really nice. For most simple business websites, not so much. But if you have a web shop or a big listing website, then menus like this can be super interesting. Before this update, this was only possible with external plugins like Jet Menu from CrocoBlock, for example, which isn't a free option, but now it's just included in Elementor Pro. So let me show you the difference. We have 2 menus over here. So the original menu widget is now called WordPress menu. That is this one, which we are all used to. But right now, when you go to the widget panel and you search for menu, you will have the menu one over here, and that is Elementor's own menu widget. I think the reason why they did this is because this is not just a mega menu widget. It's also a widget that you can use for all of your menus if you want to. So let's see. So here we have the normal one, but in this container, I dragged in the new widget. What is it? You just get items like this. You can rename it if you want to. So for example, type in home and then the link can be something different, which is nice. So for example, you can also link to home if you want to, and then it will add that link. You can even load in dynamic pages over here and then go to the other one and do the same thing. So in this way, you're just creating a menu from here and you're not using the WordPress menu from the backend, because normally you would always have to go to the menu panel, then create a menu over here and then load in that menu in the normal widget over here. But with this one, the experience is all within Elementor, which I think many people will prefer because the less time you have to go back into WordPress is nice. And then if you want to create a mega menu, you just select this one and then the triangle is added, and then you can click and then it opens a new container input field where you can drag in widgets, whatever you want. So for example, add in a heading like that and just add in a few widgets like this, and now this item has these widgets, as you can see. But that's optional, you don't have to do it. You can also just create a normal menu. I'm planning to create a whole tutorial on this new menu widget. For now, I just wanted to show you this. By the way, if you don't have this widget in your panel, then make sure to go to the backend, go to settings, features, search for menu and make sure this one is active. Then the widget will appear. Oh, and also you also need to turn on the Flexbox container and nested elements, which both can be found on this page as well. So make sure that these are active. When the dot is green, that means it's active by default. Okay. They also introduced the loop alternate template. What is that exactly? I love this feature because this gives us much more options for dynamic content. So let's say that we have a simple blog like this. We are using the new loop grid widget, which of course is a lot better than the post widget, where you could only disable some things. And then within the loop grid widget, you just make sure your settings are okay. You select a loop, and this is my loop for one blog post. So then it creates a grid with those blog posts. Great. But what if you want to have some variety? Because this is a little bit boring. It's just one list. What if you want to start with one big blog post? Can you do that? Now you can with the alternate template. So if you click on it, then you have to select the template. And here you have to select another loop template. So what I did within the theme builder, I just went to loop item. I just created a new blog loop version 2. Let me show you what's inside. And that's this one. The text is now overlaying the image. So I just saved another loop. And now I can just go in here and start searching for that name. That one is called version 2. And now we can use that. But you have to set up the position. In this example, I want that to be number 1. As you can see, now we have a different looking one over here, but I want it to be wider. I want it to be 2 columns. And there you go. Now we start with my different loop, and then the other loops will continue. And we're all doing that within the same widget. See how easy that is? Make sure that this one is on if you want the same design. Apply once, because otherwise it will use that same design, which is not what you want. So apply once, adjust the columns, and that's it, which is great. This is how I think that most people will use it, but you can also use it in a more simple way. So what you can also do is do something like this, where you want one item to be bigger. So you don't have to select a new template. You can also just select the same template as you use over here, but then make it wider. Now this doesn't look so good because the image is not high enough. So in most cases, you will have to create a new template anyways, but sometimes you can also use the same template and then make it just wide. And I'm showing you this because it kind of suggests that you need to use another template, but you can just use the same loop template and then just make it 2 or 3 columns or whatever your design requires. Okay, really cool, Elementor, thank you. This update also introduced the first version of the new top bar, as you can see right here. This made many people stressed out because it's a change in the UI. We don't have that bar at the bottom here anymore, but I think it's worth getting used to because the UX is just much better. For example, you have recent pages over here. How nice is that? You easily have your page settings over here. Personally, I would put that icon over here because I found that a bit confusing, but you always have your responsive modes over here, which is beautiful. You have the Finder button over here, so that means that you don't have to press Command E if you forget that. You can just go over here and then type in anything you want to go to a different page inside of Elementor or inside of WordPress. The preview changes button is still over there. It's great. The save button is now over here. And if you have conditions, if you're working in a single post template, then they will be over here. And so that is still the same. They also changed the name from save to publish. I'm personally not a fan of that. I think save was good, but it's the same functionality, so whatever. The layers panel, or which they called the navigator, is now over here. The icon is very clear because it suggests that it's layers. Now it's called structure, whatever. It's a layers panel. Site settings can be found over here. Thank you, Elementor, for just giving us one button to go to the site settings, because you switch quite a lot to the site settings when you're building websites and it's already buggy enough. So it's good that it's now one less click. The widgets can be found over here and the rest of the settings can be found under the button with this really cool, smooth animation. Who doesn't love that? If this feature is not enabled, but you want it, make sure that it's activated. It's called Editor Top Bar, right here in the settings features. This update also had the custom unit selector. Before we had this feature, we just had the fixed values over here, but now we can put in anything you want. I already used this to make my font management a little bit easier by using a CSS feature called Clamp to make my fonts automatically responsive from desktop to mobile so that I don't have to set up tablet. They scale beautifully and that just makes my life a little bit easier. If this sounds complicated to you, then make sure to watch my typography and font video. I will put that in the card and in the description because that's where I explain all of this on how to make your font management a little bit easier. And this is not only available on fonts, it's actually available anywhere, but only use it if you know what you're doing. By the way, I also use it for the line height. So I just use percentages since percentages is not here, which is really nice. So now I can just put in a percentage and then it will change the line height of my actual fonts, because then if your font becomes smaller, it also scales in that proportion because it's percentage based. So having this freedom with the pencil is just great. Okay, that was quite a big update. Very impressive one. Let's move on to 3.13. In this update, they give us the first version of CSS Grid, which is the second version of the container. It's not gonna replace the first version, but it's a second version. Let me show you what I mean. So the container is based on the Flexbox model. So you have to understand that Elementor didn't invent the container. The container is something that has been used for years by coders in CSS. And the container has two versions, the Flexbox and the Grid. That's why when you have a container, you can select it over here. So this should actually be called Flexbox, and this Grid, I understand that they call it container, but now it's a little bit confusing because now it sounds like that this is not a container, even though it is a container. Because if you drag it in, as you can see, you can still change it to Flexbox and yeah, then it's a container. So but whatever. The thing is that it will be easier to create grid layout with this grid feature. Right now it's still under development, it's pretty new, and I haven't had enough time yet to play with it. I will make a tutorial when I'm fully confident with it, but this will take some more time. And I'm also not really in a rush because I already found a way to create grids which are great in responsive modes with the Flexbox, but it does require some math, which you will see in my container tutorial. So let's just hope that the grid will be easier to work with. Another small thing for dynamic content is that with blog post, if you wanted to have an excerpt, so a little preview of the blog post, you had to use the excerpt field, which is not on by default. You have to turn it on via screen options over here, and then you have to put in a text, which should invite people to click on the actual blog post to read the full blog post. And you could use the post excerpt widget here. Now they have a feature called apply to post content, which should then not insert this text, but the actual first few lines of the blog post. For me, it doesn't work. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, so if you know what I'm doing wrong, then let me know. But if this works, then it will be really nice. Because for most blog posts, the first few sentences of the blog post are already selling the blog post pretty well, so, you know, it's nice. This update also introduced AI. We have already talked about this. It's kind of like having ChatGPT inside of your Elementor editor. Personally, I'm not a big fan yet. I love the idea, but I don't like that you have to pay extra for it because you can just use ChatGPT for free if you need some CSS or some text. But it's nice that it's in your website because it can understand your website. And of course, the experience is nicer. I know a lot of people like it. I am personally not on the ship yet. Maybe that will come. Okay, let's move on to 3.14. The biggest thing here is that the carousel widget has been revamped to finally allow us to manually insert what we want. This was also one of these widgets that was nice that it was there, but it was really limited. So before this, we had 4 carousels: image carousel, media, testimonial, and reviews. This reviews is also a carousel if you want, as you can see, but it just doesn't say that. But now all of these 4 widgets can be done with just this widget, which is great. Less widgets in the panel, more manual settings. So if you drag in the carousel widget right now, you just have container boxes. You can just drag in anything you want. It's great. So I'm really happy that Elementor is slowly stepping away from pre-designed widgets, because as Elementor is becoming more complex and more a professional tool, things should become more manual. We started this process, in my opinion, with the whole transition from the post widget to the loop builder widget, which is I think more than a year ago already. And now they're revamping all of these widgets by just giving us input fields, which makes it less beginner friendly and requires you to know what you're doing in terms of design, but it is becoming a more pro tool, which makes me happy, because as I said before, I think Elementor sometimes is in between this awkward middle ground of being a beginner tool but also trying to be a pro tool. I think they're more slowly moving now towards a pro tool with these kind of manual widgets, which I love. I'm not sure if they're gonna keep the old widgets. I personally wouldn't mind if they would delete it, but it's also okay if they stay here. And in a previous update, we also got the loop carousel widget. This was already in 3.11, but I want to say this again because it's different. With the loop carousel widget, you drag in dynamic content from a loop. With the normal carousel widget, it's a static one. So here you can drag in blog posts or any custom post type that you want. So for example, for a real estate website where you have houses, before you would have to use a tool like CrocoBlock, Jet Engine in order to create a slider with dynamic content. That's now all possible within Elementor. There's something wrong with my images over here, but you get the idea. These are post dynamic content, which you can load in with this widget. Okay, so that's the difference between the loop carousel and the normal carousel widget. Now we're gonna go back to the loop grid, because as I showed you before, you can drag in another template over here with dynamic content. So for example, one blog post. But what you can also do is add an advertisement in the middle over here. Before this, you would also have to use a tool like CrocoBlock. They had injections. So let's say you have a list like this, blog post list, and you want one ad somewhere in the middle. That's what I've done. So I've designed one ad over here in a loop item. So it's not a saved template. I've tried that before, it didn't work. So you have to create a loop item over here. And then you go to your loop grid. Let's just add another one because maybe we want to keep this one. Click and add the name, which is called loop ad. Yeah, Elementor block ad. All right, the position, let's put it on number 5 or 4. Let's try 5. Let's see what happens. And yes, there it is. Apply once, column span 1, because we don't want it to become too wide. And make sure that static item position is on, because otherwise it will eat up one of the blog posts that was behind it. Because Elementor doesn't understand that it doesn't have dynamic content. I don't know why, but that's how it works. So you have to check this one if it's a static item, because otherwise you can see here we have the scooter dude, and now we have one more blog post. So this one was eaten up by this lady. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So now we have a different loop over here and an advertisement all within one loop grid widget. How amazing is this? Really smart and well done by Elementor. So thank you. I want to say one thing, and that is you have a equal height option, but that isn't always the best option. For example, if you have blog posts and your titles are different, then it creates big gaps. So what I've done over here is that I've just given this a minimum height. It's not the best option. So what I would like to see is that this item automatically becomes the height of the other items in the loop grid, because now I had to mess with minimum height, and that's never perfect for all kinds of devices. So maybe that's something that Elementor can consider. I don't know if it's possible, but that was an issue that I found. Okay, the style guide from Elementor. So you're working on your website and you're like, let's check out the colors over here. You go to your site settings and then you go to global colors, and now you have this one over here. If you press that, Elementor will create a style guide for you. It's nice because it contains all of the colors that you want and it's automatically updated, which is great. It also contains your typography, but it does not use the sizes. I did use sizes over here because I added the sizes to the custom fonts, which I've explained in my fonts and typography video. But Elementor for some reason doesn't display that. It only displays the fonts. Maybe that's something they can improve, but for now I'm not going to use that feature because I have my own style guide, which contains a lot more, also padding classes, background classes. This one isn't perfect, as you can see, but personally I want a little bit more things on my style guide. But it's great because I think for many people that don't have their own style guide like this, I think that feature is great to check your consistency. Okay, this one is also really nice. I love it that we can finally add widgets by just clicking over here. You know that when you drag a widget somewhere, sometimes it just bugs and it jumps around and you're dropping it somewhere and then it drops somewhere else, especially when you drag in containers. What you can do now is you can just click on the container you want to add items to, then click on the plus or the widget, and then just go to your widget panel and then just say like, okay, I want a heading, click. I want a text editor, click, and I want a button, click. And then they're all added over here. Really easy experience. You can just click and keep adding things to the container without having to drag. It's a small thing, but it makes life better. So thank you, Elementor. This one is also nice, small thing, but very nice. Let's say you have a situation like this, you have some widgets on the left and an image on the right. Sometimes you want to change the height of the image. Maybe you want to make it the same height as this container. So you start messing around with the height over here, but you can already see what's happening. The image doesn't scale proportionally and it doesn't crop it, it just messes up your image. So now we have object fit over here. You could just put it on cover and then it will crop it automatically, and you even have the options over here. We don't have a custom option over here, but I'm already super happy with this. You can, for example, put it on bottom center, which would work for this image, so that it stays in the proportion you want, and then you can still change this. Thank you, Elementor. This update also added image generation to AI, Elementor AI. Again, it's a paid extra product, but I really like this a lot more than the text generating because we have ChatGPT. But image generation right now, most of the tools are paid anyways. You of course have Midjourney, but then you have to use Discord. So I like it that that is now implemented. Again, I would prefer it if it would be part of Elementor's pricing, but I get it. I get it. They want to make some money as well, and generating images is not free for Elementor as well. I should test it myself. Maybe I will be convinced then. For now, I'm just watching it from a distance. Okay, let's talk about the last update, 3.15, the Taxonomy Filter. So if you have a lot of blog posts or you have a lot of products, you might want to add a filter like this so people can easily click on the different categories. You could already do this with a little bit of creativity. As you can see right here, this is a web shop that I built and I already did this. So if you click on the black, it will only show the posts that have the black category. For some reason, my image doesn't load, but this already works. And I did that by using the sitemap feature. So if you used the sitemap feature and then you selected taxonomy over here and then product categories, you could also already create a list like this and then just delete the title like that. And then you would also have it. But right now we have a widget for it, which is better because this is kind of like a hack and then the styling options are not that good. So you can just delete that and then search for Taxonomy Filter and add that over here. Then you select the grid that applies to, because you might have multiple grids. And then you can select the product categories over here or blog categories, whatever you want. Right now, it already understands that I am in a product archive because that's the template I'm in. So it doesn't show the post categories, but if you have a custom post type, then it will show different options over here. Okay, you can make it vertical and then change the alignment and do something like this. For some reason, it does show all twice, but you can hide the first item and then that goes away. You can even add a number over here. You have a few styling options, which is great. Let's test it. I'm gonna publish this and then I'm gonna refresh my shop page. Okay, black. As you can see, it doesn't work. Okay, it shows my post. Okay, I need to find out what I am doing wrong. I am not sure what I'm doing wrong. So if you know, let me know in the comments, because this should work. Because we are in a product archive page here. The display conditions are only for products. Maybe because it's a new feature, it doesn't work perfectly yet. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. Let's see if it actually links to the products or to the post. No. Okay, this should work. It doesn't right now. I'll figure it out later. Another widget which many people use on their website has been revamped, and that is the Accordion widget or the toggle widget. Yeah, we had two widgets for this. It was a little bit annoying. If you would search for Accordion, you would get this widget. If you would search for toggle, you would get a toggle widget. These were very similar. Right now, we just have the Accordion. I love it that they combined these two widgets because the current Accordion is just much better. This is the old version, so let's drag in the newer version. And now it also has an input field. So you can decide to drag in any widget you want. For example, just a text widget if you want to. But you can also add other widgets. I don't know, for example, a video to an answer in an FAQ, which is a lot better than what we had before, because we just had this little box over here and then you could mess around with like HTML code, but that workflow wasn't really nice. So I'm super happy that this now has a lot more features and that it has combined the Accordion and the toggle widget so that we have one less widget over here, which cleans up the widget panel. I also really love this one, the full width carousel. This was not possible before and I wanted to do this before, and I saw sometimes developers do it with custom code, which is having a carousel that goes from edge to edge. So let me show you another example. So here in this website, you see that I have a loop grid with blog posts and they actually go full width, and even some of these posts go outside of the page. It's a really cool effect. It just wasn't possible before with Elementor unless you knew how to custom code. Now it finally is, so I'm really happy. I haven't tested it yet, but I want to do it. This project is something I'm going to make a tutorial about, so that's where I'm going to use it. For now, it just triggers my imagination. Okay, we are done. That was a big one, guys. A lot of updates, but I have one more thing, and that is that the new 3.16 is in beta right now. This will come out, I think, in a week or two, and this will finally put the container as default on all new websites. That will also mean that I'm finally gonna release my container tutorial, because I waited for that moment, because I want to release that video when most people are gonna switch. At least that was my idea. I don't know if it's gonna work out for me. I don't know if it's smart, but that was the idea, because I know people were hesitant when things are still in beta. So it's gonna be a big moment for me, because that's a tutorial I worked on for so many months, actually more than a year. And yeah, it will force anyone to learn the container now, because you probably cannot go back to sections and columns. So if you want to see my tutorial about the container, make sure to be subscribed or click on the bell so that you don't miss it. And if you already want to learn the container, then you can check out my course, because I already explained the whole container Container in my course, but I guess that most people will wait anyways before Elementor puts it in, and then they have to, and then I will release my video. So what feature do you like the most? I am personally just really happy with the direction Elementor is going to. They're becoming a more professional tool right now. They're listening to the community. So I'm a happy customer, and maybe you guys are too. If you agree or disagree with me, let me know in the comments below, and then hopefully I will see you in the next video.